My name is Henrik Walter. I'm a professor for psychiatry at the Charité in Berlin, and I'm educated as a psychiatrist and a neurologist as well as a philosopher. My role in this project is that I'm leading the multi-center studies where we will investigate the resilience of our subjects. Well, we have basically three criteria to select the persons. First of all, they have to be young, 18 or a little older, because this is a very critical period. And also, if you finish school and moving out, this is a very stressful period of life. But the problem is that we need people that develop also psychological problems, so we have to enrich our sample. And we do this by two criteria. First of all, we will select people who had already some problems in life, so-called major life events, like serious relationship problems or losing a loved one or divorce of the parents. And also, that's the third criterion, have to cross a certain threshold in psychological problems. So we'll use a questionnaire measuring mental and global health. And if they come over a threshold, have these three life events, and are young, these are the three criteria which we chose to select the subjects. Yes, they are generally healthy, so they have not a diagnosis, but they just have, well, the risk of developing some problem. We have two studies actually, so we have an observational study and an intervention study. So in the first study, we just observe them, and only then, after we have developed interventions, we will do interventions as well, so in order to help them not to develop those problems. That's the whole idea of the project. So we plan for each of the two studies, we plan 250 subjects to include and to observe them for half a year. That's the first study, and then have the intervention study also running around a half a year. We will validate the model in a way that I think is a perfect cycle of empirical research. We start out with a theory, then we will draft a first preliminary model, then we do some research, feed empirical data in, and then, and this is the advantage of a model, then we can do hundreds, thousands or 10,000 simulation experiments. That is, we have the model, we can run it again under different circumstances, tweak it here or intervene there and look what happens. And with this simulation experiments, new questions will arise, and then we can put it again into empirical research and thereby improving the model step by step in a circle. That's a nice thing, because although we start with a model, we already have some data from previous research. So one is the MAP project, the Mainz Resilience Project. We have also two other studies which will feed empirical data in, so we're already working with them. For these two large studies, which we are doing, we do a long battery. So this includes a lot of questionnaires, neuropsychological tests, biomaterial and so on, and then also centrally investigation of the neurobiological correlates of factors which contribute to resilience. So first of all, this is a emotion regulation paradigm which uses positive reappraisal, and it's also a stress task that we stress the people in the scanner, also a reward task and a cognitive control task, and all these tasks try to measure factors which contribute to resilience. So basically, we don't think anymore in regions, to be honest, because we know that everything is connected in the brain, and although sometimes there are regions which are mentioned very often, like the amygdala or the prefrontal cortex or the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, we think of them rather as hubs, so that a node in a network. We will do traditional region analysis, but we will do also whole brain analysis. And we have been also working in my lab, and particularly on methods that try to evaluate the network activity and the connectivity of those regions. And you can characterize those networks by new methods which don't look at just one region, but try to take into account many regions at once. Yeah, that's a good question. Most people think resilience is kind of a trait or property of persons which is fixed, but we don't think so. So in our view, resilience is an outcome, that is staying healthy despite adversity. So what's very important, and this is also a very important part of our project, in order to see if you stay healthy despite adversity, you have to measure adversity. That is, we will continuously measure stress or as we call it, daily hassles, like, problems at work, problems with relationships, problems with life, so to say. And only then do we know if people are resilient, because only those which have much stress but stay healthy, they are defined as resilient. They have a resilient outcome, and there are these factors which I already alluded to, which then will improve resilience or make resilience happen, so to say. But this is a dynamic process. That's why we call it DYNAMOR, the dynamic modeling of resilience. Exactly, the healthy adaptation to stress. And you could also ask, why do we choose people with risk? Most people are quite resilient. So even if you suffer from a severe trauma, most people will recover. So this is an important question. This is a problem for all investigations in this stream. So when you ask people that they don't answer honestly, so you have a problem, that's clear. But we assume, and that's also our experience, that if people engage in such a study, which takes quite a lot of effort to take part in, that people are in general very honest. And also we don't have just the digital mappings. We don't just ask by smartphone, but we also will talk to the people, obviously. We will have also psychiatrists in the background if something serious would happen. When people are really getting bad in the sense they are getting suicidal, or we would need the intervention of a medical doctor, psychiatrist or psychologist, we will be ready to help them. Yeah, that's also very good questions. A lot of people think that these smartphone applications are not personal enough. So our experience rather is, before you really take the effort to see a psychiatrist or psychologist, that's a very high threshold. Many people don't cross this threshold. So we think it's a good thing to have these digital things, because then people are much earlier ready to tell that they're not well or that they might need help. So it's rather that when we get exactly those subjects before they really come into a situation where they will suffer or develop a disorder. So we are an international project. We have 2 centers in Germany. This is Mainz and Berlin. We have also a center in Nijmegen. We have also a center in Zurich, although we will not recruit subjects there. And we have also Warsaw on board and Tel Aviv. We try to make them as homogeneous as possible, but we will have some variation, obviously. So we have Western countries, we have Eastern countries, we have even Israel, which is a very special country. But we think that's good. So we have variety by country, and we try to make our population more homogeneous by looking for young students, which we will engage in the study.